Hi, I'm John Twist of University Motors, and I want to talk about oil pressure today. We had a very unusual situation with this MGA. This has been in the shop since November or October maybe, and we've done a lot of work to it. We've driven it any number of times. It's had 70 pounds of oil pressure all the way along, and the other day we started it up, had no oil pressure. Well, right away everybody says, oh, it's got to be the gauge. But remember, the gauges never go bad. There's exceptions to all of these rules, but the rule is the gauges never go bad. So why isn't there any oil pressure? Well, we've been starting it, driving it in and out. Maybe the oil's washed out, diluted with gasoline, because we run them on full choke when we move them in and out of the shop. So it drained the oil, didn't look like it was diluted, put new oil in it, still no oil pressure. So now it's like, well, this thing's got one of these spin-on adapters. Okay, now I know spin-on adapters are supposed to be all neat and cool and so forth. We've got a lot of trouble with these spin-on adapters. We have to take an intermediate piece and chuck it up on a lathe and spin it and take some metal off it because they're made incorrectly. Plus, there's no bypass valve. And the original filter head, there's a bypass valve, so that if the filter plugs up, you still get oil going into the oiling system. Now, on the early Sprites, there was a yellow light on the dashboard that actually illuminated when that valve operated, which was rarely a light that came on as if to say, stop the car now and change the filter. They didn't have those more than a year or two. So anyway, I took this filter assembly apart because maybe there's something wrong with it. Maybe the filter's plugged up. Who knows? So I take it apart. What do I find up in there? 2 oil rings. This is not uncommon, but remember there's only one oil ring, plus this one's got blue silicone on it. Horrible. The silicone walks away, gets in the filtered side of the oil, runs down into the oil galleries, plugs up, destroys a bearing. Bad, never ever use silicone on these. So anyway, I got those out, I remachined the part, put it on, still no oil pressure. So what's going on? Well, I go over to the oil pressure relief valve over on the other side of the block. I take that off. Hey, it's loose. Not very loose, but it's loose. So I take it apart. I measure the spring. It's supposed to be 3.0 inches. Well, it's 2.9 inches, 2.95 inches. Hardly short, but I went ahead and shimmed it up with a couple of bent 1/4-inch lock washers, put that back together, took the spark plugs out, spun it over real fast, still no oil pressure. Well, now this demands that I remove the sump. Well, what could be going on? How could I not have any oil pressure? We're going to go over to the bench and take a look at what I found. Here we are at the bench. Let me show you what I found. First of all, I dropped off one of the caps, one of the rod bearing caps. Now, these aren't perfect. These bearings aren't perfect, but geez, they're pretty nice. They're 30s. I snapped it out of there and took a look on the back, and they're 30,000s, but the bearing material's there, so it's not the rod bearings. So I dropped off a main bearing. What did I find? Ooh, look, the thrust washers are on the wrong way. Now, that doesn't make any difference about the oil pressure. See these slots? These slots go away from the cap. I know in the MGA workshop manual, in one publication, they said to put the slots towards the cap, which is wrong. So any engine builder knows to put the slots away from the cap. So this must have been done at home because someone was following the workshop manual, which had wrong instructions. It was corrected later on, but there are some of them out there that still say that. So the little slots here go away to allow the oil to flush out and lubricate the end float on the crank. Anyway, this bearing looks okay. My gosh, what's going on? So we take the oil pump apart. Here's the housing, and well, first of all, well, maybe not first of all, let me grab the gasket here. I took a look at the oil pump gasket, and geez, gasket isn't broken, so it wasn't that. Now here's my oil pump body and the rotor. So now I take a look at the vane here in the oil pump, and look at this. I'm going to grab a pair of pliers from behind my cameraman here, but look at this. I'm holding the shaft tight. Look at that, huh? Very, very, very unusual. So the engine's running, the shaft is turning, but the vane is not turning, so it doesn't make any oil pressure, or just barely a dribble. So all I have to do is replace this with a good one, good used one, and the oil pressure problem will be taken care of. This is so bizarre. This is so unusual. I think maybe we've only seen this twice. I remember it about twice in 30 years. So why did it shear? Because it's about minus 100 degrees outside in Michigan winter weather, and the oil was so thick that that thing sheared. Trying to turn that cold oil? Maybe. But it probably won't happen again. Hey, I'm going to be at Bob Connell's on April 12th, Saturday, Tune Your MG, Connell's MG service in Indianapolis. And if you can make it, we'd love to see you. See you guys later.